Welcome to the XY Advisor podcast, where it's our goal to help you become the best financial advisor possible and drive the positive evolution of financial advice.
Hey guys, Ben Nash from the XY Advisor crew, and I'm super pumped to be introducing this brand new series we're about to kick off all around the 3 Ps of plan, produce, profit. Now, the XY team has spent a lot of time thinking about what makes a great financial advice offering, a great financial advice business. And what we distilled it down to was that there are 3 key elements that you need to get right to have any level of success in your financial planning business. The first is about planning and how to plan an epic service proposition that's engaging for the people that you want to work with and compelling to drive real results within your business. The second is about producing, and that's about being efficient in your business, streamlining things, maximizing the benefits of technology to run a scalable and profitable advice service. And then the third is profit, which is all about getting your message out to a bigger market. How do you attract more people into this awesome offer that you're running efficiently and scalably? So I'm taking over the next 15 episodes. We're going to have 15 advisors, going to be 100% advisors. I've had a bunch of fun with the recordings that I've done so far, the interviews, and I've got a few more great ones to come. So I hope you enjoy this series.
This episode is proudly sponsored by FE Analytics. Now, a number of XY advisors have already discovered this one-stop, easy-to-use tool that helps with investment research, analysis, portfolio construction, ongoing monitoring, and client reporting. Find out how FE Analytics can help you improve your business process, manage your existing client base, and win new business by contacting Bruce Jenner via bruce.jenner, Jenner, at financialexpress.net or visit financialexpress.net for more information.
Well, mate, thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Evans, all the way from sunny Dubai. Is that the UAE? I need to work on my geography, mate.
Yeah, United Arab Emirates. There's 7 Emirates. Dubai is one of those. Abu Dhabi is another one too that people probably heard of as well. And then there's lots of smaller ones like Sharjah, Ajman, Ras Al Khaimah, and a few others. So yes, sitting in the desert, or the Sandpit as we like to call it.
Given Sharjah's the dry state, we probably don't need to spend too much time talking about that. But
No, the Dubai is a good state.
Mate, thank you for joining us and taking the time. I know it's busy setting up your thing, and I know that we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But we're talking today part of this Plan, Produce, Profit series. Just had a whole bunch of great conversations around how to plan an epic service proposition. This is the first one around how to produce efficiently, which is all about having a user experience optimized engagement process, setting things up in a scalable way. So keen to sort of pick your brain. I just mentioned just before we kicked off that it's been a little while since we've caught up on the practical side of what's going on in your business. So Look forward to hearing about the evolution. But mate, firstly, talking from the other side of the world, give us a scoop.
Look, I mean, we've been talking for a while now about having an office overseas and or multiple offices overseas. So it was sort of the natural progression of Atlas. From our point of view, it was always about providing the best level of service and the most specialised level of advice to Australian expats, and it sort of makes sense to be where the expats are. So Dubai is the first phase of what we're trying to achieve by getting boots on the ground and being able to have these conversations with expats. The expat landscape is, from a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of in the last 2 years, it's an 11 when it comes to the amount of changes that are going on right now. So, and we're finding that information is lacking, or there's too many rumours, or there's not the right amount of education going on with expats. So it's always a lot easier to have those conversations face to face or running seminars locally. So we've gone from a digital only platform to now digital and boots on the ground. So here we are in Dubai.
Mate, blazing the trail yourself. How better to advise the expats than to become an expat yourself?
Yeah, walk the walk and talk the talk.
That's it, mate. Love it. It's like just had a kid recently, and I've been saying to all my clients, about half of my clients are still yet to have kids, and I just say to them, look, as we're going, I'm creating the cheat sheets and telling you all the things so that you can that's how much we care about customer service.
Exactly. That's right. Exactly. You're right. You're beta testing the product.
Exactly, mate. So, sorry, and I should have said, for anyone that's been living under a rock, Atlas Wealth Management, give us just in terms of a quick overview. So, you guys, how long have you been going?
As of next month, it'll be 8 years.
Your team, what does your team look like?
Right now, it's it keeps changing, 9 or 10, or depending on the day of the week. So we've got primarily everyone's located on the Gold Coast. I'm on my lonesome here in Dubai, looking to build up that team here, and a mix of CSOs, AAs, paraplanners, and advisors as well as operations and that sort of stuff as well too. So certainly, when my first hire occurred in 2015, so I was a solo advisor from 2011 to 2015. Probably should have made the call earlier to hire people, but it's probably the most daunting thing you've ever done is take someone on your payroll, A, for cash flow, and B, for responsibility. If you have a bit of a bad month, it's your fault. But whereas when you had a bad month and you got people relying on the salary, that was sort of scared me a bit. But so virtually first hire came on in 2015, and we always, from day one, it was always about building a platform which is scalable. It was never about this is going to be one or two people. Sophie, who was my first CSO, who's now our operations manager, the reason I actually hired her is because she had experience in setting up offices and as well as the financial planning side, but had the experience of building. We didn't want to hire someone who is just used to coming in on day one, turning the computer on and going to work. We had nothing. So when it comes to tasks, workflows, templates, everything, we had to build it from scratch. Yeah,
it's an interesting thing that there is a big difference. I've noticed followed a similar-ish journey in that for the first almost 3 years of the business, I resisted hiring anyone except for my wife, now Yang. But yeah, it's now having growing the team more, it's like if you don't have someone that specifically does have that skill set in creating things for themselves, it's not something that comes naturally to a lot of people as well. So cool. So, and then how long have you been advising before you kicked off Atlas 8 years ago?
2001 was my first year. So been in the game since 97. Started off as an analyst with the ASX, and then worked for HSBC, Suncorp, and then it was a great firm called Salomon Smith Barney, which no one in Australia's ever heard of. It's pretty much the biggest firm in the US in terms of financial advisors. It was a great firm. It was, sort of run by advisors for advisors sort of mentality, and it was a fantastic firm. But then as the integration came on, so Salomon Smith Barney used to be called County NatWest, who people in Australia might know, and then it was umbrellaed under Citigroup. Going through that process wasn't the most pleasant of processes because there became more of a global standardization. They were setting rules for advisors who had Series 7's license in the US, but they'd say to Australia, you must abide by these rules, even though they had no bearing on our clients or ourselves. So going into 2007, 2008, we all know what happened then. And clients were coming to us, and they were quite fearful when it came to their money because they knew we were a US firm, even though everything was CHESS sponsored and local custodians and all sorts of things. So myself and a business partner, our colleague, decided to make the jump, and we applied for an AFSL back in 2009. 10 days from the bottom of the market, we thought we were either geniuses or stupid, or still don't know what the case was.
Some sort of combination, more likely.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think naive is probably the best way to describe it. And pretty much we set up a practice, and then not too far into it, I've always found I had these milestones from a birthday point of view, and I was 35. I went home and just had a really bad day. Well, obviously still trying to come out of the bottom of the GFC. And I said, this can't continue the way I'm running my business, how I'm operating, who I'm working with. It was virtually a open door policy for everyone. And I was hitting that critical mass size. So I went home one day and just decided to write down, a page of, and I don't like business plans because I think you're sort of sometimes too beholden to those things, but it was just what I want to do for the next 5 years. And it jumped off the page that I should be working with expats. They were time poor, most importantly, respected advice. That was a big thing I was butting up against. I was having too many conversations with people who just wouldn't listen. So people respected advice, weren't fee sensitive, and I had a natural in with that being obviously a former expat myself, living in the US and Hong Kong. So expats, even though they're Australians, are a very different breed, and you talk expat. There's a language there which a lot of residents of Australia wouldn't understand, even though they're Australians, and they do it with an Australian accent. So, and it's more of an understanding than a language barrier. So, decided to go all in a month after the birth of my second daughter. Don't recommend that because you think you've got no sleep when you have a baby, well, you have no sleep, and starting a company, you really have no sleep. And pretty much, whether it's because I'm Taurine and stubborn, just for the next 2 years, just blasted out content and just listen to no one. Everyone said I'm crazy. Everyone said I'm stupid. And I just blocked out all noise and devoured myself in producing content and getting out there. I saw that social media was the gateway for what I was trying to achieve because you got to have conversations at scale, and dovetail that in with, sort of flying around and running seminars locally and visiting people. It just slowly started to gain momentum, and that was in 2015. That's when I sort of had the courage to make my first hire. It's sort of been like that ever since.
Yeah, awesome, man. And so what's at the moment, can I ask your revenue sort of band?
Yep. In terms of what total revenue?
Yeah.
Yep. Last year was the first year we crossed $1 million.
Okay.
So awesome. That was a big thing for us. It proves that scalability is working, because if I look at our headcount increase versus our revenue increase, there's no correlation, which is good. If you had to keep hiring staff to keep that trajectory, then all you are is just hiring staff. You're not actually doing anything. Whereas, our staffing's increasing 20 to 30%, but our revenue's increasing between 40 and 70%, or depending on what metric you're looking at the time. Awesome.
Yes. Well, we're talking all about scalability today, so keen to jump into how you engage. And because I know, as I mentioned at the start, that it's been a little while since I've got an update from you, but working last time we chatted about this in detail when you were still based in Australia, obviously you're working with people from all around the globe, people on different time zones, people at a time 4, as you mentioned, as well. So I know that at that time you had a real focus on being able to make it easy for them to engage at a time that was convenient, but also to make it, because people will pick things up. You were telling me run with them for a bit and then they get caught up in other things. So it needs to be a way that you guys are able to manage things efficiently as well. So can you, obviously you've been on a bit of a journey, but take us through that process, how you've ended up where you have when it comes to that scalability and efficiency piece.
Yeah, look, I think there's sort of 3 stages that we look at. And the first stage is obviously the inquiry. We're quite fortunate now where every day quite a few inquiries come through. There's almost like a triage opportunity at that point to determine, yes, we can help, no, we can't help, and if we can't help, go speak to this person. So that's the first and foremost, always a response within 24 hours without fail. We always have a response back in 24 hours. I know when I've sent an inquiry off to another company and 2 days, 3 days later, you haven't received a response, I've already gone and found someone else. So from my point of view, it's always about ensuring that process is solid. The next part of it is obviously reaching back out and organising a time for a call. And usually it's Zoom, Skype, GoToMeeting, whatever tool we need to use in different jurisdictions, because we can't use all tools in all jurisdictions. So it's a matter of scheduling that time and proceeding just to a 20-minute, half an hour, sometimes 60-minute call, finding more about them, and then working out how we can help. At that point, we've always found it's quite divisive in terms of the timeframes. So there's those who just jump straight on it, and they're coming back to us as quick as we go to them, and the advice process goes very quickly. There's others who just go dark. And, when I say go dark is that it respond to emails, all these sort of things. And initially we were like, what have we done? So we constantly go back and revisit what we're doing. But then we suddenly realized a lifestyle of an expat is incredibly busy, incredibly frantic and turbulent. And a lot of the times they're traveling for work, or there's all sorts of things that go through their life. So we'd found that people would come back to us a week, a month, 6 months later after that first email to say, hey, I'm still here. Sorry about the delay there. This reason happened or this reason happened. So very quickly it dawned on us that we can't rely on acceptable turnaround time for that reason. So what we did was worked out two things. A, we need to give them a time frame, and we virtually tell them when they engage us to provide financial advice, we send them a online fact find for them to go through and complete it. And we virtually tell them they've got 7 days to do it. If they don't complete it within 7 days, they go to the back of the queue. And what we've found is it works for about 60, 70% of people. The other 30%, they're happy to go to the back of the queue, which is fine. So what we're always trying to do is, those who are willing and ready and committed, to get them through first. It also means that we have to have a very wide pipe, because if we're working on 2 or 3 leads a month, you can get that going. Whereas right now, I haven't looked at the numbers, but there would have to be over 100 leads at any one point in time that we're working on that are at different stages, whether still waiting for them to come back to us, still waiting for them to engage us, still waiting for them to set up a time for an SOA meeting. There's all these bits and different pieces. So that's where you and I discussed before about pipe drive, which is great because you have those stages and you just virtually drag a tile straight across into it. So what we've done is, because 95% of our inquiries come through our website, we've used obviously Gravity Forms as our contact form, which then creates a deal inside pipe drive. So first stage is initial contact, and then what we do is, as they go through that journey, you can drag them. And that rotting feature is great because it gives you a chance to, chase them up, because, you can see that it's been 7 days since you've heard back for them. So certainly that pipe drive has enabled us to manage well over 100 inquiries at one time, but not dropping the ball with any one of them. So because it became impossible trying to manage who was at what stage, pipe drive's been invaluable for that.
Awesome. And so the inquiry comes in, you respond to the inquiry, and then you ask them to do the fact find, do you?
No, because sometimes expats, we've found that the inquiry can be embedded in other ways, if that makes sense. They'll come to us and say, I need tax advice on my tax returns, but in actual fact, they're actually not asking about tax returns, they're asking about non-residency status, investing and super. So that's where we find that first initial call, that triage, gives us an opportunity to have that chat and say, no, you know what, you don't need us. You just need an accountant who does a lot of expat work, or you need we don't do risk in-house. You need to speak to our colleague who does our risk work for us, or a mortgage broker, and so on and so forth. So rather than tie them up, we found, I've always talked about that sort of frictionless experience, rather than getting to go through that process of doing that. From our point of view, it's almost reversing it, making it so let's just get on a call, let's have a chat, let's meet, and then work out what the next step is. And it's after that call and they come back to us and say, yep, let's go for it, that's when the fact find goes out. The good thing about the fact find is to sort of become emotionally invested. They've verbally said, yes, I want to do this. I want to go through that journey. We've obviously provided them things up until that point about the advice journey, the process, and what they can expect to achieve out of that. But then what we do is something a little bit different. We actually charge for an SOA fee up front. And when I say up front, that's before the SOA is even presented. The reason we do that is we found that we were producing SOAs and people were just not responding. They go right up to that point and then they just disappear. And I think it was a combination of it was costing us money. It's very hard to track someone down in California or UK who's engaged us for an SOA and sort of done the runner on us. But also B, by getting them to pay, it's funny how much more motivated they are after they're paid to get that process going and quickly. So it's been a good process. We're always tweaking it. Every week there's always that sort of little change here, little change there. Every time I think we got it, I look back a year later and think, oh no, we're better than close. Now we've got it. So it's that evolution of delivery. But from our point of view, the hardest thing is geography. Trying to, it's like getting someone to sign some paperwork. Imagine they're sitting in New York. They'll say, oh yeah, I'll get to it this weekend, and then work or personal issues or whatever. Oh, sorry, mate, I'll get to it next weekend. So it's a matter of trying to smooth out that process as much as possible, just to say, okay, here's the information, here's what you want, let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's one of the beauties of financial advice to me is the ability to essentially experiment where you can tweak one aspect of your process with the next client that you work with, and they will never know that that's not the way that you've been doing it for 10 years, and you just see what works, see what doesn't, get some feedback, and it allows you to do that constant and never-ending improvement, which is what leads to that award-winning service, essentially, right?
You never know unless you try.
That's it. So what do you use, just a quick one, what do you use for your forms for the fact find? I'm assuming that you're not sending them a PDF.
No, Gravity Forms, which is embedded inside our website. It's brilliant.
For the fact find as well?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's quite a detailed one. The amount of information we require as opposed to an Australian resident client is quite different. We'll go through and talk about issues, and it's conditional logic. So we'll go through and let's say, for example, it's someone in Australia who is planning on moving overseas, then they won't get all these other questions about overseas TINs, overseas addresses, all those sort of bits and pieces. The good thing about the fact find, and I know a lot of people are nervous about it, in terms of being online, and I know there were some conversations the other day on XY about it as well too. From our point of view, it's easy for them to complete it at home because that's where the documents are. And we actually, inside that fact find, they upload their passport, they upload their super statements, they upload everything that comes up into there. And from that, by the time they've engaged us and completed the fact find, there's no gaps.
Yeah.
But one thing that's come out of the Royal Commission and something we were very cognizant of was we wanted, in their own words, what their expectations are, what their problems are, and what they wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
So, if you have a fact find in the advisor's handwriting, I know in a court of law, the lawyers just got to pull that apart. Whereas if I have an IP address in Singapore, in Hong Kong, London, Dubai, wherever, and in their own words they've typed it in, and we've done that, to me it's just sort of providing that rigidity behind the scalable process.
For sure, man. Look, to be honest, I didn't understand. I know that some advisors, do it and do it well with doing the fact finds themselves, but there's obviously you want to be covered from a compliance perspective. That's clearly the hygiene factor, but also just it's like you say, like people have got the information at home, or they can pull on it. They can work through it in their time. It's efficient instead of me sitting down with the client and asking them what their middle name is and what's their next of kin details. Like to me, that just seems like I just gonna need to charge them more because I'm sitting there holding their hand while they provide basic information. So we do with clients. We have like a fact find, like a clarified type meeting, but we'll send them the fact find before we use FormStack, which is similar-ish, although I love the fact that you can upload documents inside yours, which we can't do in ours. But then it allows you in that conversation to focus on, well, what's jumping off the page to say, is this correct or is this not correct? And did you mean that? Was that missed on purpose? I remember you mentioned something about the share portfolio. There's nothing there. Did you mean to include that? What was missing? And take the conversation to a higher level instead of just getting basic, easy sort of stuff. So
the thing is, I think, people will only tell you what they're prodded to ask. And the great thing about when you look at the native version of the fact find, ours is a monster. But if they don't have risk insurance, if they don't have property, they just sit no, and suddenly all those questions go away. So from a client's point of view, if you're a university student who's about to move overseas, so all you've got is HEX and a little bit of super, our fact find, you can get it done in 2 or 3 minutes. If you are husband and wife living in the US and you have foreign and domestic pensions and you have an estimate, that will be a complex one. But then again, that's going to be complex anyway. So I don't see why putting clients who have simple backgrounds through a complex procedure. And that's the beautiful thing about an online fact find with conditional logic is it is customized to that person. If they're single, they have no kids, they're not going to ask about spouse or kids.
Yeah.
And the other thing we found too was, I don't know about a lot of advisors out there, but my handwriting is shocking. Like I should have been a doctor. And the amount of time I was wasting just going back and forth with admin, correcting, what my handwriting said.
Yeah.
It's amazing when it's typed in. You never get an integration problem between what's in your CRM and the truth.
Mm. And so when the people enter their data through the Gravity Form fact find, where does that go? Does that go directly into your CRM?
No, it doesn't. No, that's I guess we haven't found that holy grail yet. We are working towards it, but it's because our clients have a lot of offshore stuff. We probably couldn't do it anyway because a lot of CRMs don't have a lot of offshore capabilities.
Yeah.
So we sort of prefer it. So it goes to our admin assistant who, as soon as they hit submit, at the beginning of the fact find, they select who their advisor they're talking to is. And at the end a copy will go to the advisor and a copy goes to the admin associate. The admin associate then completes all the builds the file inside Midwinter, and then once they've finalised that then triggers a task for the CSO to, and so on and so forth. So it's a daisy chain process. Everything's handed off. Building a scalable solution, you don't refer to task giving to people by their name. You do it referring to their job title. And the reason being is if you decide to put another CSO on, that's going to create issues. If your CSO's name's Fred, it'll always keep going to, one CSO and not the other. So that's where we've always been cognizant in that process of making sure that the process is scalable by making those tasks and workflows by job title, not by or responsibility, not by name.
Makes sense. And all of that's driven in Midwinter. Is that right?
Yep. Yes. So virtually we use Pipedrive up until engagement. And then there's a bit of cross-pollination because we use Pipedrive also to track the stage of where it is on an SOA and responses and those sort of things and ATPs. But once they engage us and do the fact find, that's when it starts loading up into Midwinter. And then virtually from Midwinter, I have never counted it. There's lots of tasks that then spin off in different directions, including once the client's actually onboarded 100 days after, or not 100 days, might be 30 or 60 days after they become a client, it actually triggers a task for the AA to send out a gift package to the client. So everything is incredibly documented all the way through so that we can pull someone off the street tomorrow. As long as they've got an understanding of financial services, we can work with the computer and we can scale them up very quickly.
Yeah. Awesome. And so obviously with your clients all being overseas, you're working with them. You're not working well, with the exception of you. Clearly, you're on a mission to do that in Dubai at the moment. But outside of that, I'm assuming that most of your clients you'd be working with remotely.
Yes. Yeah. Look, I would say 98%. I think we get between 2 and 4 visits a year. So our boardroom is the most underutilized room ever. It's a waste of space, but it's and it's amazing. I think advisors have an aversion towards it, but people are using it anyway. I mean, grandparents are talking to their kids, and everything is done in this sort of fashion. So it doesn't replace face to face, and that's why one of the reasons why we're here in Dubai. It doesn't replace it, but it's 80% of it. When you remove that visual capacity, you lose 80% of your body language. So you can do a lot through video, and I think it's amazing the conversations you have. I've got a couple in San Francisco, and every time we have a call, it's always late afternoon, early evening airtime, and they have G&T sitting in front of them. Other calls, we have cats walking across the front of the screen or babies on laps, and it's great because we can have these personal conversations that don't even involve financial advice. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, my cats cleans my webcam on when I'm working from the home office for sure. Great, man. And so how do you do like file sharing and documentation? You mentioned waiting on signing documents for people. Obviously, some financial services stuff, you need that. But I'm assuming that you're trying to do digital documents and file sharing and that sort of stuff where you can?
Yeah, from a internal point of view, we use Dropbox for Business, which is brilliant because you can set up, as well as your members, you can set up groups. So if it's operational stuff that you don't want, employees to see, but you need to share it with senior management or business partners or those sort of people, you can have a folder there with that content in it, whether it's employment agreements and that sort of stuff. Then you can also we have folders per advisor, and then different staff members can see different folders, which is great. So, it's been an interesting experiment to go through the process of setting up here because nothing has changed in our system at all. It's virtually connect to Wi-Fi and go. And I'm sharing documents here real time. I'm still being able to do everything I was doing sitting on the Gold Coast. So I think that's an important part, especially when you have not only just intra-office, but other external offices as well, or different remote staff. To be able to share those documents real time is incredibly important. Once again, I know there's an aversion towards cloud-based software, but I think it's probably an education thing as well too. I mean, I would rather trust a team of encryption experts who work for Dropbox than saving things on my C drive that any 13-year-old can break into. So, I think there's a lot of, there's been a lot of bad things, that's for sure. But there's always going to be bad things, so you just don't hear about the other ones. You don't hear about the smaller ones.
Yeah, and unfortunately, everything is all, hackable these days. It's, I think the question of what is safe is really a subjective one. So I understand that point. So, yeah, look, so tell me, at the moment, are there any key efficiency projects that you're working on in your business? I know that you're probably fairly occupied with that, with trying to get up to speed over in Dubai. But what are the key things on that front, if any?
Right now, we're going through reviewing the organisation from a structure point of view in terms of how we're going to service clients. The biggest thing we're always cognizant of is, it's great to be bringing all these clients all the time, but if you're not looking after, once they get on board, they're just going to spit out the other side and you're not going to scale anything up. So from our point of view, we're looking at who the next hire should be. And you always need to be looking at 3 to 6 months down the track, because from our point of view, if we're not front of center of their mind and just saying, look, we're here for you the whole time, images and thoughts come into people's mind, whether they're correct or not, and they'll judge you on the back of that. So it's going to be one of those things where we want to make sure we're high touch, but geographically quite a long way away. So, little things like just a quick email, "G'day, Ben. Hope you and the wife and the new baby are well. Just let you know we're here for you." It's amazing, getting an email like that, the power of it.
Yeah.
But when you're overseas, away from family and friends, just to know someone's there for you. The last thing we want is that approach where they don't hear for us for 6 or 12 months. Not that it ever happens, but we just want to be always front and center of their mind that we've got their back here. We sort of joke about we keep their backyard in Australia clean while they go overseas to work, and we want them to feel that way. That there's no burglars coming in, sort of breaking in, and the grass is getting long. So to us, it's a combination. I think we've got the technology pat down well. We've virtually rebuilt midwinter and customized that to suit us. When it comes to technology stacks, I don't like to make them too big, because then you get integration issues, and they become quite unwieldy. And next thing you know, you have to hire an IT staff member to manage all the integrations. So it's we've sort of kept it pretty simple when it comes to sort of pipe drive and midwinter being sort of the cores, and then obviously Dropbox for Business sits behind as the vault, so to speak. So the other issue you got as well too when you're scaling is you want to make sure that if someone is sick, you can still get access to things, and that's where having that central repository of information is important, because someone gets hit by a bus or sick or whatever happens, they business needs to continue. And the true test of that was a couple of years ago. My wife and I decided to take our daughters up to Hamilton Island for a couple of days. What was meant to be just a quick sort of long weekend getaway, and we ended up being on there when Cyclone Debbie went through. So it was I was off the grid for a week, and at that point we had Sophie and another staff member. And I remember sitting there just going, I could get one bar if I walked all the way to the top of the mountain in the middle of Hamilton Island and get these sort of cryptic messages and text messages out. And it's amazing when I walked back in the office the following week, it's like nothing had changed. So that to me was the affirmation I needed. Okay, what we're doing is right. It's working, because everyone else has continued working. They knew their process, their tasks automatically triggered, workflows were going through. In actual fact, people were sort of like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, it's amazing. It does make it easy with the systems, but I love that the keeping things simple from a tech stack perspective. I think that's a critical one. just so because it's more things to manage. And I think for any small business, like you say, unless you've got a dedicated resource to do that, it's something that ultimately falls back onto the senior leaders in the business, and more things for people to be across. So
I think also too, if you have too many, you don't understand the whole thing enough. Whereas midwinter, we know the chassis, we know the shocks, we've pulled it apart that much. We know the system very well. The same with Dropbox for Business, the same with Pipe Drive. I think a lot of people sign up to a lot of different pieces of technology, but they only use 10% of it and they go, oh, that's crap, and stop using it. In actual fact, they've got to go all in and see whether it's worthwhile or not.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we're on this journey with this Salesforce-based CRM, and the reason that we chose that is because we know that you can adapt it and do anything like you talk about with Midwinter. You can tweak everything and sort of build it around what you want, but it is easy to get frustrated and see you start to use something and go shit, because it is a lot of work. Like, I'm sure you talk about customizing Midwinter. I've been on a similar journey from the Salesforce side, and it's it's frustrating, it's hard work, it's time consuming, it can be expensive, or it's definitely a significant investment in getting that set up. So how do you decide what to prioritize? Clearly you spent a bit of time with your Midwinter and automating everything out. What was the process that you took to figuring out what it is that you build out? Where do you start? Where do you go next? How do you tackle that?
It was pretty much putting yourself in the client's shoes and just thinking about the client journey. Not only what you have to do as an advisor from a compliance point of view and from a professional point of view, but what the client expects and how they expect to sort of integrate with that. So it was in actually physical form. I actually put bits of paper down on the boardroom table and just broke it down into sections. And then, from each section, by categorizing that section, then you can assign tasks to different roles and different people. I don't recommend going too deep first in, because you'll actually never get it done. So, breaking it down, summarizing it, and then attacking it that way is the best way. Because if you break something, don't break it down to 50 or 60 items, because it becomes very hard to work out what works and what doesn't work. So break it down into 10 items or 10 tasks, and then see how that goes. And then you tweak each of those tasks. So, you might tweak task number 5 of 10, and that will then split off into 2. And then sort of it builds over time. I mean, just today we paid another bill to Midwinter for customized coding, templating as well. We're always just tweaking, because if we were resigned and happy with Atlas where it is now and didn't want it to grow, we wouldn't do it. But we're always thinking ahead. Okay, we've got 800 clients. If we have 1,500 clients, how's that going to look? And I don't want to get to that point to have that client have a bad experience because you weren't constantly going forward and thinking about what the next step is. So it's all those little bits and pieces. But, I think a lot of people haven't actually documented or mapped out the process, or they've just gone along with what they've done in the past or what the dealer group's told them in the past. There's never been any free thought about, the actual process itself.
Yeah, well, I think process is how my brain works. That there are different types of learners. Have you ever done any sort of disc profiling? Or we followed the Wealth Dynamics Roger Hamilton approach, which is similar ish to that. And they talk about that some people are more coming up with ideas. Some people are more focused on processes. Some people are more about the people, and some people are more about the timing. And I think I've done a bit of reading on it and found that there is only I think it was about 20% of all people are that process minded, which I think is a massive advantage when it comes to this stuff, because at least it's like you say, that you don't have to just follow what the dealer group said or what to do. But then I think at the same time, for me, I keep things pretty simple in our business. That we have a new prospect process. We're from made an inquiry to become a client. Then we have one for onboarding, one for ongoing, and one for reviews. And some of them, the onboarding one is the biggest one because it's going right through that initial client, bringing a new client on. And, there are 60 odd steps or something like that, which are different forks and bits and pieces, because it is it's a complex sort of thing. And there's obviously it's an important thing from an internal perspective, a client experience perspective, and a compliance perspective. But what I found is that when I roll out this process and I'm typing it up in my thing, but as soon as you hand it off to somebody, then they go, hold on a second, what's this? And it doesn't make sense to them. So then you have to go, oh crap, okay, hold on a sec, let's wind it back. Well, what are we trying to do here? What is it? What's the gap? How do we need to fix it? But I think that when it's like a best laid plan sort of thing, that you have to tweak things. And I find that I was doing it once a year when it was just Yang and I, but now that there's more people in the team, I'm having to review the processes more and more often, because it's things are changing faster, and also people's approach, we've got to try and make it easier for them as well. But I find that that's probably one of the most important ways to drive efficiencies in the business. And also, like you say, that can deliver that consistent experience for all of your clients.
It's the McDonald's approach. I mean, whether you get a Big Mac from Sydney or the Champs-Elysees in Paris, a Big Mac's a Big Mac, and it's that client expectation. If you're setting that expectation but not delivering on it, it's on you. And if you can't scale, if your capacity is one client a week, but you're not changing anything, it always will be one client a week. If you tweak things and streamline things, and to me, it's about senior management articulating to the firm what they want to achieve, but then empowering the employees to help design the process. Because exactly what you said, you might have in your mind how it goes, but it might be gobbledygook to everyone else. So I think getting all that buy-in from everyone is the most important part of the process, because we've found in the past through trial and error, when we didn't have buy-in from certain staff members, there were things being missed. And, you pick up on that normally after they've left, but then you go back and put the safeguards in place to ensure that it hasn't. So it's great, because what you can do is you can make certain tasks compulsory, that they can't go to the next stage until they've done the first stage. And that's from certainly from an ownership point of view, it gives me a lot of peace of mind knowing that every person has to tick off that box. We can't get to the next stage, and whether that's support staff or advisors as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so with the work that you've done so far, clearly it's been pretty extensive, but do you have anything on your horizon in terms of key projects or initiatives in that scalability, efficiency, technology space? Definitely.
It's look, we're always cognizant of the fact that not everyone needs an SOA when they're becoming an expat. So we launched out recently.
Don't tell us it.
Yeah, look, it's something that we had this sign off by a compliance consultant. We launched a product called the pre-departure review, which is for $295. They type in their details, put their credit card in, and within one business day they get emailed a report based on their responses, issues they need to be aware of. So if they've got a PPR in Sydney, we talk about changing tax status when you become a non-resident. It's not advice to them. There's no products recommended. There's no advice at all. But it's sort of like topical, and those sort of things. So, I think there's an Australian resident every 1 minute 53 seconds moving overseas for a period of greater than 12 months.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is we're not trying to get 2,000. Sort of I think works out to be 18,136 people a month to do an SOA. We just want to educate them using technology, and then quite often we find that they'll do the pre-departure review and go, you know what, I've got big issues, and then they'll engage us to do an SOA and so forth. Some people just go, okay, cool, I need to be aware of that, great, and then they book their plane tickets and off they go. But at least they've been informed, they're aware of those scenarios. So I guess from our point of view, it's going to be along that line of education and format, with advice sitting at the top. So the more people we can help, the better the result from our point of view. from a financial point of view, but also from a community point of view. Misinformation in the expat community is huge. Every day we see issues of people receiving the wrong advice, in some cases costing them hundreds and a couple of cases, a couple $1 million because they took the wrong advice. So I guess having those conversations at scale and dovetailing in a scalable, basic solution that then they can then escalate themselves to a high level of advice is probably where we're going over the coming years.
Love it, mate. And so tell me, thinking back on the last 8 years, clearly, efficiency and processes have been a focus. Is there anything that you set out to do that just completely didn't work that you thought would?
Yeah, no, and it's a great example of learning by failure. So because of a couple of clients, we talked about the issues of, problems with mail, what to do with it, who should I send it to in Australia and that sort of stuff. So we thought, let's set up a business where people redirect their mail to us and we scan it and put it up, into a highly encrypted vault, so to speak, and they can tell us what to do with it. That way there. It's called expat mail. And
I wouldn't pay for that. Does it still exist? Because I'm sold.
And we surveyed everyone. So we surveyed people. Out of the people who responded, 70% said they would. We also asked them price points. We asked them everything. And everything came back saying, look, we can make this work. So we rolled it out. And a lot of fanfare. We thought, this is going to be easy. We've got a natural client base for this sort of stuff. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Huh?
No one. In 1 year of running this, we had one inquiry.
Wow. How much are you charging?
$20 a month.
Fuck, I'd pay for that here.
Yeah. So, but going through that process, I'm thinking, what's going on? Why isn't this working? And it's sort of, the more I thought about it, I thought we're virtually reinventing a piston power petrol engine in a electric motor age. People are getting mail digitally now. Everyone gets their statements online. So the mail problem is not as big a problem as we thought. So, so that sort of went the way of the data. We may have another crack at it in a different form down the track. But look, it surprised us, but I wasn't trying to put our eggs in that one basket. It was a complimentary service. I thought, this would be a great value add for clients, but, the fact that no one signed up for it is a great example of, the market always decides.
Exactly. Yeah. I've only got a few expat clients, and they're typically ones that I've been working with that were, clients first and then move overseas after. And I've got one client who's a total legend, and we just collect his mail for him. They just send it to his office. There's just a little pile in the corner, and whenever he comes back, he's actually was living in Japan now. He's moved to Singapore, and when he's back every couple of months, we catch up. He pops into the office and he just picks up the mail. Then it's like you say, it's a dying thing that there's.
So there you just dropped out there. Yep, it's something that I think and it depends on a case by case basis. Some councils will send their rates notice digitally. Some will send it via mail. So it's all that sort of tweaking, I think, it goes on that really sort of mucks things around. I also had visions of the website being our nexus of our voice, but the volume of inquiries that we get now, and also the consistency, and how far we can go. I think we're getting inquiries from countries that I never even heard of, and I thought I knew quite a few countries. So I guess how deep we're getting is probably the thing that blows me away. We did a bit of a soft launch with a podcast early this year, and even though it's sort of been on the back burner while I'm sorting out Dubai, I was blown away by how many inquiries we got from that. And we've only done 6 episodes. So, to me, it's going to be, I've always said, I don't want to turn the taps on until I can cope with, the demand, I guess you could say. if you go out there and blast that and suddenly get 100 inquiries, how would you handle those 100 inquiries? And so that's why we've always been sort of just making sure that we can handle any increase, and certainly Pipedrive's helped us with that, because one person might respond in an hour, a day, a week, a month, or a year. So you need to be able to build a system that can sort of cope with that different response rates, but not lose anyone in the process. I think the quickest one they've ever got was a guy who's still a client. He's now in Singapore, but he worked in IT. He was in New York. I followed him on Twitter. He followed me back. 5 minutes later, he DM'd me. 5 minutes after that, we had a Skype call. And probably about half an hour after that, he'd engaged us. So that's an exception, but it just shows it can happen. At the 40,000 foot view, just, if we can do this in all these weird and wacky places, advisors in Australia would be able to do this so much simpler than we. It's harder for us to target in different jurisdictions. But, if you want to be the advisor of Northern Beaches, the opportunity is there.
Well, James Miller might disagree, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's funny though. I think that you've clearly done amazingly well, put a lot of thought behind what you're doing. And I know that there are businesses that focus on expats. You would know better than I do, but there's probably still not a lot. I would think in the grand.
Look, we've never met a firm who just purely specialises in it. So there are advisors who do expat work, but in terms of in Australia, there's no firms in Australia that all they do is look after expats on the financial advice side. So I think that's, I guess how we have this natural attraction to expats. They reach out to us, every day. We're getting, inquiries since I've been talking to you. Just look on the screen and had another 3 come through for just through this period of this call. They're naturally seeking out our advice. So, I think having the courage or convictions to go all in, and it is, being a bit naive, being a bit stupid or a bit stubborn or whatever, or combination of everything, but it just shows that it can be done for anything. If you wanted to be an advisor that specifically targets 38-year-old male truck drivers for Rio Tinto, you could do that. It's so simple now, and I think people are sort of missing that gap. And certainly with the way things are going with the advice industry today, I think people need to do more. If costs are rising, so you can either do one or two things. You can either stack staff or increase your revenue. So it's the steps you take now, and it doesn't happen overnight. And that's why so many people stop doing that, is because it doesn't work in the next 3, 6, 9 or 12 months. It's a 2 to 5 year journey. So the sooner you start, and both with, you need to work in two hands. You need to be building a platform that is scalable, but you also need to be building another platform that provides the clients to have that scale. So, it's exactly, that's right. So, it's pointless building the most amazing, procedural steps if no new clients are walking through the door. So I think it's doing both at the same time and doing that well, and then it sort of takes almost a momentum of itself. It's quite a bizarre experience, and I mean, looking at how Pivot's gone in the last couple of years. I guarantee 4 years ago, if I said to you, "This is what you'd be doing in 2019," you would have laughed at me and walked away. Yeah. But it was stuff you were doing 4 years ago that has brought you to this stage right now. And 4 years doesn't sound like a long time, but to consistently keep doing it, and whether it's working on your procedures and constantly reinventing them, or working on how to feed that funnel, those are the two key issues. What's the big picture? How are you going to achieve it? But then most importantly, what you need to do to achieve it. And then they go and build this massive list, and they get so overwhelmed they go too hard. When in actual fact, they need to break it down. By breaking it down, what they're going to find is the process isn't actually that hard. They're just got to nibble away at it and not expect it to be done overnight. So whether it's something simple as, we do fact sheets for clients, it's taken a bit of time to build them, but we've got fact sheets that after an introductory call, we send out to the people. just so they can read in layman's language what a PFIC is or what is deemed disposal and those sort of things.
Yeah.
Just to show that, A, we understand that they need to know about this, but B, here's something that, once again, coming back to that frictionless experience.
Yeah.
But whether I have 1, 10, or 100 advisors, they're all using the same fact sheet.
Yep.
So that, to me, it's that scalable thinking along those sort of lines. You need to be able to provide advice consistently, but in a compliant way that is scalable.
For sure. Absolutely. So tell me, if you were to go back to the start and you had a clean slate, what would you do differently?
A lot of things. I would have backed myself more, and that's always an easy thing to say in hindsight. But I guess at the time, for the first couple of years, I was half pregnant when it came to, going all in. Even though I thought I was going all in, and every day I'd write a blog post and this and that and that. With the benefit of hindsight, I could have done a lot more. And we could have been twice as far along in half the amount of time because of that gap in the market. But also too, look, I think the biggest thing would be from a hiring point of view. There needs to be 100% buy-in in the process, unequivocal. That needs to be the mainstay of that whole relationship with the employee-employer. There can't be any exceptions.
What do you mean by
that? When it comes to processes involved, the delivery, there was just too many exceptions, if that makes sense. And, when you're starting off, and look, a lot of us have never been employers before. So we're like, you just go along with the flow. Yeah, this will be fine. I'm sure this will be okay. And it creates so many issues because something's being delivered in a way that you don't want to deliver it. And it's, wasn't, not that it's non-compliant, but it's just not you.
Yeah.
So to me, it'd be more about not trying to change employees is probably the best way. Hire the right person at the start. Don't see something in them and say, I'm going to, take you from a piece of coal to a diamond, because A, it's a lot of work, and B, they may just be a piece of coal.
Yeah.
So
I would say I learned that lesson with my wife, but when you said they might just be pieces of coal, I realised that would be inappropriate.
Yes.
Love you.
Hi, Yang.
Hi, Yang.
It's look, it's something I think that you can't scale without people. You can't scale without technology. They both work hand in hand, and in the US they call it the hybrid advisor model, and it's true. I think it's something that it's an AI form of the human is the interface and has all the soft skills and can make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. But everything working in the background, the processes, the procedures, the IT, is making that process a lot easier so that they can spend more time face-to-face with the clients, but also work with more clients. I've heard of some pretty crazy numbers of advisors in the US working with 600 clients, and they're high touch.
Wow.
I don't think I would like to get to that point myself, but also think that, and it depends on the clients. If you've got, sort of $10 million clients, you're not going to have 1,000 of those. You might only have 50 to 80. But if you have, sort of $100,000 to $250,000 average balances who are low touch, you can have 1,000 of those and service them quite easily. So I think it's a matter of, the industry loves spitting out data and metrics, but I think you need to sort of take a seat back and say, well, how does that work with me?
Sure.
The expat side is great because there is no foreplay when it comes to meetings. If someone comes to your office, they'll have a couple of tea and some bickies, and you'll waste the first half an hour of that time discussing. And look, that's important time. But when you have a video call with a client, they jump on, you get on there, you do talk about wife and kids and stuff, but you do get into it a lot quicker. And you can talk to more clients, and you can get through your day quicker. So I think it's a matter of having both of those options to be able to do it, but also having the clients buy into the process as well too.
Absolutely. And so, what would be your top tip for somebody that was thinking about that was either someone that was about to start out and wanted to focus on efficiency and scalability, or someone that wanted to refocus their business or their advice offering on efficiency? Top tip.
They need to talk to two different people, one person in the game and one person outside of the game. And the outside of the game is the value prop. Do they? And this person has to have an experience in terms of business or scalability sort of options, but also as a client. But then someone inside the industry as well, who they can sort of learn from that experience. And to me, it'd be a matter of sitting down and it's sort of top down, bottom up, like building a portfolio. You look at your asset allocation, that's going to be your business model. How am I going to, what service I can provide, analyze your market, go through and look at that. But then the bottom up approach is how am I going to deliver that? What technology is available? Where can I be more efficient in my time? It's amazing. A lady I spoke to as part of the interview process for my first hire, she had lost a job. And I said, oh, why is that? And he said, oh, my boss sold the planning business. And because of all these changes coming up. And it's amazing how I just jumped to the conclusion that the guy was 60, 65 and didn't want to go through phase and all these things.
Yeah.
He was 39. And he was stuck using Post-it notes, handwriting SOAs, and then handing them to be dictated. Like it's amazing. It's a mentality point of view, and I'm not surprised. He just got burnt out. It's and then I'm still hearing there's people out there doing that. It's amazing. So for me, it's something that if you are starting out, you need to audit yourself both internally and externally. Because and do it with people who will give you honest feedback, because it's something that I think sometimes we can convince ourselves that we're doing the right thing, when in actual fact we're a year in and we should have changed that about a year ago. And it can be very demoralising. It can be very time-consuming to go back and do that whole process again. But then you just convince yourself, no, we're fine. So having those people internally and externally to sort of bounce off and say, what do you think of this? From a client point of view, and then internally, what do you think of this from a person who understands compliance and understands the regime we work in? Do you think that'll work as well too? You can't sit in isolation and just make decisions without sort of having a few mistakes and a few errors and sort of tweaking. I mean, there's not a month that goes by that we don't tweak. We've never ever just maintain the status quo for longer than longer than a month. There's always stuff to be worked on, and it may seem so small at the time, but you combine that with the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. It actually dovetails into quite a big process. And I think what we do is we sort of get caught up in the business instead of on the business. And I'm the first person to put my hand up and say that's me. And I remember it was last year before, I think it was. I actually shut the office down for a day, which I never do. We're that busy. It just that's like kryptonite to me. We sat in the boardroom and just spitballed, and then the morning was operational stuff we can work on. Everyone had an equal say around the board table, and the afternoon was operational stuff that had nothing to do with financial advice. Yeah, and that was probably the afternoon session was one of the best sessions. There's the cat. There's my
webcam Wi-Fi. Hey, Winnie.
Tug is away. And it was probably the afternoon session, which is the best session, because suddenly junior staff who don't have as much financial planning advice experience, but they have good ideas, they came through really quickly. And we've done things that never would have done if we gave them that opportunity to have that voice.
Absolutely, yeah. And plus there's so much stuff that we tend to fall into that is so archaic in financial services that you sometimes having someone from outside and saying, we just go, oh yeah, that's sort of it and how it's done. But having that someone from outside, you can really see, they go, well, hold on, why? Or why can't we do this instead? So, mate, I love that as a tip to get a fresh set of eyes, but also to have someone with that experience to back things up.
Yeah, I think it's something that I've been fortunate because I've never been in a dealer group. So I've worked as a portfolio manager / stockbroker at Smith Barney, and then got my own AFSL. So I guess I've never really been indoctrinated into the whole, you must do this for this reason, and look, we always, and we joke about them at work, we actually get calls from financial planners calling us up to say what we're doing is illegal. It's hilarious. And, we sort of question them why they're making that statement. Yeah. Obviously, they got too much spare time. Because,
get on with it.
They're calling us. But, they'll call us up and say what you're doing is illegal. And we say, well, why is that? Well, my compliance department told me that. Yeah. And that's their process. They don't go look into the process. They don't pull apart, the engine. Which is what we do. When we did our AFSL application to ASIC, it had expat written all over it. When we did our application to get a license here in Dubai, expat all over it. Like it's working within the constraints and the structure of the regime is how it works. Just doing something for the sake of doing it, that's just insanity, if you ask me.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's amazing how often you see that, and if you don't have the knowledge to challenge, then you just think that that's the way. So
and then save your breath and the 20-minute phone call to me and go look into it, and you'll see that it is legal. Yeah. And that's the funny. That's the it's I don't know. It's sort of keeps us amused anyway.
Nice, mates. Well, thank you. I mentioned at the start that we could have just kept talking all day, and we're talking today about the produce part of the 3 Ps, but I could have just as easily got you in for planning and the profit element, which is about getting your message out as well. Couple of quick ones for you though, before I let you go. What's your biggest oops or stuff up moment in business outside of the mail service?
Atlas today is not what I thought it would be. Is the honest way. The target market is exactly what it is. But coming from a asset management, portfolio management background, I started Atlas because I knew expats were sitting on cash and I was going to manage the money for them. Where we sit now could not be any further from, I guess, Genesis. It is we can provide SOAs now with no product recommendation. It's pretty crazy. So we've sort of gone to that higher level now. Any product recommendations are execution elements, but there's so many other moving parts to it. And to us, in the next 5 years, there's probably going to be even more again. Who knows? But it's gone from a very single silo type of thing to a multifaceted option. And I just say people go with it. To me, I felt like I was coming out of my my comfort area because asset management was my speciality. And then to go through this process, and you're learning as well. And I look back now, and it's funny, my wife still calls me a stockbroker because that's what she's always known me as. Yeah. But now it's just I couldn't be any further from the truth. Yeah. So I would say, my biggest whoops would have to be going in too focused. And that's probably when I said before about we could have done twice the amount of work in half the time. If I just read the tea leaves and the feedback in what people were asking for rather than telling. I said Atlas will be a lot bigger now than it was originally because I was convinced this is what they wanted. This is what they wanted. Yeah. And they kept going back saying, it's nice, but can you answer this question? I know we don't look after that side of it. Whereas I should have said, no problems at all. And I should have solved that problem. Yeah. And we would have been instead of our first hire being in 2015, it probably would have been in 2013. Yeah,
love it. Let the market tell you what they want. Great advice.
Market's always right.
And speaking of great advice, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Make it hard to spot the general by working like a soldier.
I like it.
It's something that I would never. I'm always happy to be the hardest worker. I'm always happy to get in the trenches and get dirty, as much as my employees. And I think when you engender that sort of spirit in the company, that everyone's going to knuckle in, roll the sleeves up and let's go, you do get that team sort of mentality. Don't dictate, I think is the best way. When you're talking to employees, it's working in a conciliatory way together, as opposed to, I call it playing managing director, sort of pointing and just giving people jobs. You're never going to scale a culture, which is just important as scaling technology, which is most as important as scaling advice. If you're going to have, like we have now, 2 offices, I want both of those offices to be very similar. Yeah. But I need to bring that culture that I expect others to work by in those 2 offices. So it's something that don't be too afraid to be folding envelopes, with your staff members. Like just get in, just knuckle in. And it's amazing how you'll see a look in their face and go, oh, okay, cool, this is great,
Yeah.
Especially with newer employees. You watch them, they'll really, become 10 foot tall when they see you working beside them. So, just knuckle in with your team because that'll set the culture and that'll help you scale that culture as well too.
Awesome, man. Well, I was going to ask you for your top team tip, but that's a great one, and I'll take that. Mate, last question. What's your spirit animal?
I don't know what that is.
It's like, what is an animal that you feel encapsulates your, inner spirit?
Okay. Tiger.
Oh, I like it.
I'd say tiger. Happy to go out and, go forward, I guess is about the best way to describe it. I was trying to think of an animal that is constantly moving forward. And, lions, they sort of lie around and sleep a lot, whereas tigers, you don't see that as much. So, yeah.
There you go. Very majestic.
Yeah.
Mate, Mr. Evans, thank you very much. A pleasure as always. Some epic tips there. And mate, I look forward to hearing about the next stage in this journey and seeing you crush it over there as well.
No, thanks, man, and good luck with the newborn. And just remember, no dos and Red Bulls don't go together.
Love it. Thank you, sir. Pleasure.
Thanks, mate. Take care.